Hello, I'm Meghann Scully and welcome to Re-Energize, a show that looks at sustainability in all its forms and what we can do to shape a clean energy future. On this episode, we're taking a look at tech and its impact on our planet. Clearly, technology is contributing to climate change in all sorts of ways. But at the same time, we look to science and innovation to help us navigate the future. I'm here with producer Connor.
Hi, Meghann.
And we had two great guests on this episode who let us explore how science and technology can both be a hero and a villain in our changing world. Elaine Burke is a tech journalist and broadcaster and co-host of For Tech's Sake podcast and the Connected AI podcast. Phil Smyth is a broadcaster and science communicator.
So this was a great episode. There was a lot of positives and negatives. I think Elaine has some really insightful things to say about technology across the board. It was really interesting to hear.
Well, I certainly always feel the pressure having to upgrade my phone. But actually, do you know what? In the last few years, I've decided, no, literally try and use this phone that you have until the very end. And it's just about, I think, being clever about how we use technology.
Yeah, I think there was maybe a lot of overlaps between the episode we did on fashion and this one. You know, it's about buying more than you need and being convinced to buy more than you need and then throwing things out before they really need to be thrown out and then things being made badly so they have to be thrown out more. And you know, there's a lot of overlap there, I think, with those two. And Elaine had some really kind of interesting ways that things are changing. I think she had some kind of really positive things to say as well about the future of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, also we mentioned in a previous podcast with Aidan Gately about decluttering, and a lot of that comes down to decluttering the electrics in our house. So there's probably so much technology that we don't use that's just sitting idle at home. But then, like Elaine said, there's a lot of ways we can positively use tech that maybe we just didn't realise.
Yeah. And then I love the interview as well with Phil. He's so inspiring. He's such a, the work he's doing with kids, and it really gives you hope for the future of science and scientists.
Oh, the energy he has, he just has such a good way, I think, of making technology fun for the young people, but also actually for us. Because I was I feel like I can still have fun with technology.
And yeah, I think what Phil was saying about, he's working with kids all the time. Not that they're really interested in climate change. It's much more about kind of the other things you do around it that gets them thinking about the world, thinking about science, having kind of a scientific mind and approaching things in that way, which will be the next generation. These are going to be the kids that'll grow up and provide all sorts of solutions and innovations in the world.
So Phil, tell us about the work you gotten into and how you became a scientist.
I don't know, really. I kind of fell into it. I was always interested in playing with stuff, mucking about with things, taking them apart. So play was always something I was big into. Now, my dad was an engineer, so I was often on sites looking at things, and I was like, oh, that's cool and other stuff. But my mom, when she was minor, we would often just let me explore out in the garden, playing with things. So it kind of started with just a natural curiosity. And as an only child, I have an inherent sense of importance because I'm an only child. I am the child. So I wanted to know everything, and I wanted to talk to adults and tell them. Yeah. So I asked a lot of questions. So I think by being naturally curious, but by also having parents who were willing to give me answers or let me find out myself, that was really kind of how I got into it. And then when the CAO came out or anything else like that, it just seemed like a natural kind of fit. So I did common entry when I was going into science. So I didn't do one particular science. I did physics, chemistry, maths. So I then got to figure out what I liked after a while.
And so I suppose then when you went to university, is it because as well, I suppose the science degrees are probably a bit more hands-on, whereas I would have fallen under the arts, where it was more so sitting down at lectures, just writing down notes day after day, whereas with science, that you got that hands-on approach?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I suppose if you say you fell into under arts, I fell in under science as well. I was like, please be like me and play with stuff as well. It's the thing about university is as well for me, it's not where you end up. What I was looking for science to do in that sense, which was common entry, was actually provide me with a platform to go and do whatever it was later on, because I hadn't a breeze what I was going to be when I grew up, or when eventually that happens. So having something like a science degree or that kind of a wide, I suppose, foundation would allow me to go in any direction. So I think that was one of the things that was really important for me, particularly with having kind of an ADHD mind. I don't know. I didn't know. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah.
Because I never know where I'm going to go. I'm going to do all this stuff. But science has provided me with like critical thinking, writing, playing, lots of different stuff. So now if I want to go somewhere, I feel capable.
Yeah. And like it's interesting then because, you know, you've worked with young people and do you find then with like young people, because they are quite curious, we're naturally curious as we're kids, we want to know everything. It's like, why does it do that? Why does this happen? Is that like where that came about because you knew that, these young people are going to want to know what's going on?
Well, it's class working with young kids because they're very easy to impress. So I seem cool. It's great fun. No, it's naturally because like that playfulness.
Yeah.
And I love being like science kind of made me cool because I was like, oh, let's blow this up. And kids are like, no way. I was like, yes, let's do it. And now I'm an adult now, so I'm allowed to buy this stuff. So I naturally love kids, but I also see that for me, it's a real chance to shape them. And there's enough people in the world that I don't like or have a particular mindset. I like influencing kids in a really positive way so that they can play and know themselves, and that failure is actually such a natural part of science.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative thing. And so if you can actually like try something and not have it work out and then go do something else and try it another way and learn as you do, your whole mindset changes. And that isn't just about experimentation. It's not about playing with stuff. It could be about like a relationship. It could be about like meeting someone. It could be about trying a different voice or a new hat or something. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if you're able to take that stigma away, the world's a better place because people are like, it didn't work out. Let's go again. As opposed to this stigmatization of trying things and then people become all neutral and stay in one space. So I like to blow stuff up. I like to work with kids who I can hopefully inspire to try things, give things one good try. And if you don't like it after that, grand. But you've tried and you know. And I think that's really important. And what I really value is them seeing the value in themselves through science.
Yeah, it's interesting there, kind of getting flashbacks now of like my science labs when I was in school, and it was always like, I loved that class because it like as you mentioned, it was a break from the regular sitting down, reading, writing, and it just was, it was playing. It was like fun. And I just said, I don't know what it is about like noise and bangs and cracks and colours. It's like, that's just what young people want.
Yeah, but it's also taught differently than most other subjects. All the other subjects you're taught at. Like English, Irish, maths, you get to play a little bit with numbers and stuff. But even some of the French, history, you're like, it's just someone talking at you. You don't necessarily get to role play whereas when you go in to do something practical like woodwork or science or anything else, you're doing the stuff. You're creating your part of it. And for kids, play is essential. It's really essential for their development, and that's like their sense of self, but also their skills, all of these types of things. It's a real boon for them if they can actually have that opportunity to play, figure stuff out, do all these nice, cool things. And then if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. But like, I suppose even the things about learning science in a particular way develops your brain. Like maths is a different language. Even if you don't get it or you have that kind of thing, you're in class, where am I going to use this? I'm never going to use calculus, ever. Why? It's a pain in the rear. But actually, by just learning maths, your brain develops new pathways.
Yeah.
So you become smarter just by doing it. You don't have to use it at the end. It's the training, it's the journey that's important.
You mentioned there, like I was lucky enough to cover the ESB Science Blast when it was in Limerick, and I was just blown away by some of the projects that these kids put together at national school level. And they were showing me how everything worked. And I was like, this is just, they are incredible. I was like, mesmerising. I loved that work day. That was a great work day.
It's not a work day. That's the thing. That's what I actually love. But it's also their pride with it. That's so, it's one of the biggest things about Science Blast is that, and I'm not just, because I'm on an ESB podcast, I'm going to get Science Blast is great. It is actually really fundamentally good in lots of different ways that isn't just STEM. Like you'll have kids who are good at art or interested in art, and they don't have to. We're not trying to get everybody to be a scientist. We get them to use science in some way. If the artist can be there to do the graphic design and do the poster, or there's one kid who comes up and goes, "Would you like to hear about the work we did?" And they talk, and they're the one who's always talking. And there's other kid beside them, and the judge asks them, "And what did you do?" And that kid says one sentence. That might be the first time that kid has actually talked about their work to an adult in any context. And that for them is massive. Like, and it's that growth. It's not always just the superstars or the super science as well, which is really impressive and fun. And the questions that they come up are like climate change and baby sharks and all this other stuff. But the growth doesn't always have to be so obvious. It could be that one, or it could be that kid being in a large group of 1,000 other kids and being able to cope.
Yeah.
So it's even like that learning around. This is a holistic, and by holistic I mean WHOL, as in it's a whole package. And by being able to present what they did and be proud of it and be thanked and say, well done, they'll try something else. And that'll be in sport, it'll be in art, might be just in interacting with other people. And that, for me, is key to us being a nation of value, because you get people who are actually willing to try.
You mentioned loads about, I guess, the element of fun and kind of making everything exciting. And, young people kind of, you almost, you see their eyes light up when stuff, they see something incredible happen in front of them. But I guess when it comes to like climate change and sustainability, is there a way that we can make kids go, I'm really excited about climate change, I'm really excited about sustainability?
No. You can make them excited about making a difference.
Yeah.
But the topic itself, there's a truth in science and an ambiguity. And that truth might change depending on how that you have more evidence depending on that. But kids naturally care about these things because it's their planet, it's their world. And they're very empathetic usually about how they approach like even different people in their class, or like it's naturally part of the curriculum, like the nature walks and all this stuff like that. We want their world. And it's their world that's going to be left there. So they're very they can be very scared because they see the doom and gloom. They can be very worried, but one of the things that is the worst thing is to take away that hope. So if you kind of go, we're our ghost, there's no way we're getting out of this, we might as well have a bit of fun, that's not going to work. You need to give kids a hope that maybe some sort of science they create, or if they actually try and strive to make a difference, that they can have an impact on the world collectively. Like we saw that with the RTE Youth Assembly on climate. Like there was a real kind of drive behind stuff. We didn't have to push that, we just had to give them the opportunity. And a lot of that is giving them the opportunity, like at things like Science Blast or other stuff. They will naturally gravitate to it. So if you go to them with sustainability, it sometimes it's a harder sell because they're like, oh, how is this relevant to me? But if you actually explain it to them, they kind of go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because they don't have previous investments in terms of economically or time or anything else, or maybe nostalgia to certain things. They are like, okay, that makes sense, let's do it. You don't have to necessarily convince them of it. So you give them hope, you give them the reason why they want to do it. I'm always honest with kids as well. Like some of them were like, oh, we're going to save the planet by, collecting all the plastic bottles and I'm like, yeah, that's great. It's an environmental issue. It's not a climate change issue. So plastic isn't coming from dinosaurs or anything else. And like you give them the facts, and you do it in a way that you're not going, you're wrong. It's actually, actually it's this way. And you give them an opportunity to then grow and go further as well. So it's a big, big question that like as adults, we can't get our head around. So we shouldn't be expecting kids to get their head around it. We just need to give them the hope and the opportunities to learn and try and positively influence it, because ultimately it's their world that they're going to be inheriting. There is no planet B type stuff.
Yeah. And I think as well, they actually teach us a lot as well.
They do. And one of the things that you see is that you don't need all the bells and whistles. Like if I hear my grandmother, like she always used to be, we made fun out of nothing. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, Nan. Great. Can I just play my PlayStation, please? But it is that. And Irish people are naturally great in groups and having chats and having crack. And that's what like being something, a project together at Science Blast or any of those types of things. It's working together, it's creating something, it's coming up with an idea. You don't need all the bells and whistles to go with it. And for kids to realise that like there's fun in this, you can try and play with it, you can make a difference, so you can maybe become rich with a product. Maybe you can save the planet, and maybe you become famous, or all three if you do it really, really well. They're like, sign me up, because their motivation might be different all the way time. But it's about giving them the opportunity, and that opportunity for growth, like I said earlier on, it's not about creating a platform for every kid to be a superstar, because that's not every kid. You just need a space, a safe space for kids to grow a little bit. And if they keep doing that incrementally, then eventually they'll become someone that they're happy being.
It must be incredible for you. I'm sure you've met, well, we'll say older kids now who've met you when they were a young kid. And then
what are you saying? You're saying I'm old now?
Older, we're older.
Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
So kids you would have met when you first started out. You must meet older kids now that have said, when I met you when I was this age and you've inspired me. Like, that must be amazing.
It's stunning. It's really humbling. Like I met a kid who's just, Jesus, sorry, I'm really insulting Kevin there. He's just finished his PhD.
Oh, wow.
And I did a workshop with him in his class in primary school. And that was when I was starting out, and I was in the Biomedical Diagnostics Institute in DCU. And he was like, yeah, no, you came in and actually I started And he had this whole like thing, and he was like, I just wanted to say thank you. And I was like, thank you. Tears. Like, I was so emotional. Because even if, like, because you always do it and you're like, oh, if you can affect one kid and make a positive change. And you just say that because you're like, I want to impact all these kids. But having someone real that wasn't set up by someone else to kind of go and say thank you to him, or I remember you came into class. He was like, no, you were the reason that I did this. And that's happened a couple of times now, actually more than a couple. It's amazing because it's not that he's a scientist. Like, that's like, I'm really delighted about that. But it's that he's happy.
Yeah.
And he found his way through us doing something. And again, it was us giving an opportunity for that person to find their place. And that is in sport, that's in science, it's in art, it's in humanity, it's in everything. So that's what these things are about. And that's what, it's also not prescribing them as in like, you should try this, you should try that. It's presenting the options and then letting them play with them and seeing where they land. But he landed somewhere that made me cry.
PhD, I mean, it's pretty good.
It was, yeah, it was great.
What's next for you?
Oh, Jesus. I don't know where I'm going this week. I have, as I said, with my ADHD brain, I am all over the place all of the time. And it's kind of like I'm juggling a herd of ducks because I don't even have the right name for what a group of ducks is. It's...
Flock.
Thank you. Yes. My life is flocked at the minute. I'm doing Lego League on Saturday. I'm working with the UCD Foundation to kind of drive the next stage, phase 3 of UCD's new science quarter. We're going to have 66,000 square meters of science for high level stuff. Like, one of the greatest things about Ireland is that you're providing kids with opportunity, but there's a pathway.
Yeah.
Where you can really make an impact on the world. And there's a lot of like large global multinationals are here that you can have our H-index, our impact on the world in science and what we do from scientific papers, huge. I have a daughter, so I'm going to be playing with her a lot. Fela means little wolf. So I've set her up for her. She's going to be a terror, but she's just adorable. So I'm going to be doing lots of different things. And I don't know what all of them are, but it'll be involved with people. It'll be involved with play. It'll be involved. I'm not necessarily motivated by money, although I like it a lot. But I get so much joy out of doing the stuff that I do. And I'm really excited about what's coming next. And I don't know what that is.
From ChatGPT to digital product passports, let's hear more from Elaine. Elaine, before we get into tech and climate, tell us about your own background into tech.
Yeah, so I am not a technologist, but a technology journalist. So I suppose my job for probably approaching 15 years now has been trying to communicate what's going on in tech to a broader audience, because the techies are quite good at talking to each other and they create all their own jargon and language around it, but it can be kind of inaccessible to the general public that way. So I try to do an effort in terms of science communication in that way and bring it to people so that they can better understand and better make decisions around technology, I feel.
Well, I suppose because for someone in your line of work, it's always going to be there because there's always I feel like every second there's new technologies just coming out.
And it's also, I think that's why it's interesting coming at it from a media perspective, because I do understand the media as well, quite well. And what I have seen over my years covering tech is that they also have a lot of media savvy about them, these companies.
Yeah.
And they're very good at having created a story around tech that often belies some of the realities underneath. And even the very idea that you need to upgrade a phone every year, like, you absolutely don't. I talk to anyone who has reviewed phones for a number of years and they'll tell you, like, just get whatever phone's within your budget because they're all really capable these days. Like, unless you're someone who's using your phone for very specific things, like maybe you're a content creator, like a filmmaker who does everything on their phone, because those people do exist. Like, the average person just needs whatever phone suits their budget, and you do not need to replace it every year. So this kind of consumer tech space has been a bit of a problem and a bit of a bugbear of mine for a while now.
I have to say, I do a lot of content creation. I have my iPhone now for a couple of years and I'm doing everything to try to keep it going as long as I can. And every time they try to like coax me in, I'm going, no, I'm just going to clearing memory sometimes. It's like...
And a lot of the time, like, they brick their own devices on purpose. It's something that we know in the industry is planned obsolescence. So it's essentially you issue software updates and eventually you'll stop supporting certain devices. And the life cycles, the lifespan of those products is getting shorter. And that's a huge issue as well. Because when you're talking about the increased digitization of things and technology being added to things where it's really not necessary, like we've heard stories of smart air fryers and all that kind of crack, but also even like the technology that's embedded into cars these days. There's really no need for that, because if you can mechanically repair something, it probably lasts a lot longer, because software repairs are a bit trickier, and software longevity is also trickier because of the lack of support and long-term updates.
I want to talk about climate and tech, because I guess when we think of climate and climate change, we know there's obviously more tech in the world, which means there's more, you'll be able to explain this better, like clouds and all of this. But actually, how can we tech and climate change actually work together?
That word cloud is carrying a lot of weight, because that's what I mean about the tech brands being very media savvy. Now, I don't know if it was necessarily intentional, but the idea of cloud computing and the cloud being where you send all your data, and we don't see data, it's not a physical thing, has really helped to obscure the real hard footprint that all these technologies have and the environmental impact that's on top of that. So when you picture the cloud, what you should picture is a gigantic data center, because that's what it is. And when you think about your data that you're sending back and forth to the cloud and storing in the cloud indefinitely, because so many platforms give you the opportunity to do that with massive amounts of storage space available even for free, is it really necessary to have 100 pictures that you're never going to look at again of the same landscape because you're trying to get that one that looked perfect that would go on your Instagram, but you keep all the rest of them because it's easy to do it? And making that easy has actually created a huge problem in terms of like the amount of what I can only say is useless data that we are storing has just grown exponentially over the last number of years. Like we'll be familiar with terms like megabyte, gigabyte and stuff like that. Started off with kilobytes. Your floppy disk used to only store 3.5 kilobytes, I think it was. Now we get phones that store like 500 gigabytes of data easily. But like when you're talking in those data center scales, they've had to like create new words around the scale of the data. So there's zettabytes and stuff like that. And even the zettabytes don't account for it. So they have to keep actually adding new maximum prefixes onto the numbers because they're running out of numbers to even account for this stuff. Like there's yottabytes, I think, are an even bigger one again. And when I say it's useless, there's probably people here who've heard of AI making use of this data because suddenly they've actually found a use for it. They've been gathering up all this data for years and it actually didn't have many use cases. I'm talking about the general stuff, not like if you're gathering data on medical diagnostics and then you're using that to help and support with medical diagnostics. Like this is the non-specific stuff, the random user-generated content that's been stored everywhere for a very long time. Now they're kind of making use of that by creating these chatbot models, which are, just think of them as predictive text. I mean, that's kind of what they are at a rudimentary level. But also image generation models. So all those pictures that you stored that you actually found no use for, a company is getting very good use out of them and creating a lot of value for themselves out of that, like hundreds of billions in valuation by saying that they can generate images on and saying that they did not scrape that data illegally and it was not copyright protected, but they also haven't released their data models. So remains to be seen what actually happened there. And all like all that, we just still think of like, if I had all those photos piled up in my house, I would think differently about it. But it's all happening at a remove and it's happening in this language that's at a remove as well. And the chatbots are like that as well, and generating images and music with just a prompt of text is really fascinating that kind of way. But what use is it really? And like it has a huge impact as well. So about like 100-word ChatGPT generated email is about like running 14 LED bulbs for an hour. And that's the low energy bulbs.
I know people that use ChatGPT like almost every single day, and like that sometimes it's just...
And there's a water impact as well. It's about a bottle of water for 100 words generated by the GPT-4 model, which is one of the slightly more advanced ones that people pay for access to.
So is it just then that we need to become, as you said, like if you're at home and you've all those, if I printed out every single photo that's in my phone right now, I'm kind of feeling like I need to do a big declutter. I probably wouldn't be able to walk into one of the rooms in the house. So is it a case then that we have to kind of say to people, look, we need to be more clever about your use of AI?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm not here to demonise people for using things. Certainly not at an individual level. There's enough climate guilt being thrown out at the consumer and individual level, I think. And it's actually, the problems are way higher up than that. I think the change needs to come from higher up, and it probably won't be motivated until public sentiment turns in that direction.
Yeah.
So I don't say these things to make people feel bad for playing around with ChatGPT. It would be nice if you were conscious of that. And I think that's step one, really, for on the consumer level.
Can we talk a bit now maybe about the positive impact that tech does have on climate change and maybe how it's working together?
There are amazing things happening as well. And they actually happen when I think regulators also get involved on this side of things. So in the EU, there is a directive to try and shift towards a more circular economy. I think that's really positive. And efforts being made in that area are around like e-waste, so our electronic waste, and even like the right to repair. So making it so that companies have to make it possible for consumers to be able to repair their products. That's been a challenge when it comes to consumer tech, where sometimes it is cheaper to make products that are hard to repair because you just glue everything together and you don't make it so it can come apart easily and you can replace component parts, or you make it that component parts are very specific and proprietary to your brand and Apple and hard to get. But like, they've had to open all that up, and that's because of enforcement from the EU. I think that's really positive. And another positive shift that's going to come down through this kind of circular economy shift in the EU is digital product passports. And the idea is that every product bought and sold in the EU will have to have what's called a digital product passport. And that might be an embedded RFID tag, so the kind of tag that enables you to do like contactless payments. So there's something embedded in it that you can scan and it can kind of interact with things. Or it could even just be a hand-stitched QR code somewhere on, say, a textile or something like that, because obviously we might not want to have chips embedded into our textiles. Because if every product bought and sold is going to have this element attached to it. And what it will do is it will mean that consumers, vendors will all be able to access product information for the entire life cycle of the product. So we have barcodes which kind of tell you things about the country of origin and a bit of information on a product. But this will be much more extensive and it will have a long life. And giving products a long life is a really positive step forward for circular economy. And it means that, say, people who sell clothes on Depop or Vinted and stuff like that, and maybe those clothes, they're trying to like verify that those clothes are what they've said they are, that they were bought a certain year, that they've only had one other owner, or that they're from a specific like high-end designer. That provenance will be traceable through a digital product passport. You'll be able to verify that as a seller and as a consumer. Will help small businesses to verify things like our hand-knit Aran sweaters are literally hand-knit on an Aran island, not like the other ones that you can get on Shine and Temu and stuff like that. And it'll be able to give that verification to even small businesses. And it's going to start with what they believe are the most high-impact products in terms of creating waste. With batteries to begin with, and then shortly after that, textiles and electronics will be obliged to start to adopt these digital product passports. And it should start happening fairly soon. Like I think 2026, 2027 is when they expect the first ones to come into being. Now they're still working out the intricacies of how it's all going to be deployed and how the databases are going to be managed that people access, and how a consumer themselves might be able to update that database. But it's really interesting, and even tying into the right to repair. If you have a product like a handbag that you want to get repaired, you'll be able to bring it down to like your alterations place, and they actually might be able to scan and find out what materials were used to make it, so they can match, say, the stitching or the patches that they're going to use to repair it. So it just really supports the idea of a circular economy with some very clever technology.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about like reduce, reuse, recycle. And I think we've done a lot in terms of recycle globally and nationally, but that's the last one on that list for a reason. Like you're actually supposed to start earlier. And I'd also add repair into that mix as well. So reduce, repair, reuse, recycle. Yeah. And that's how you really get longevity. When you're buying a product, maybe think like, and how do I dispose of this? What will be the end of this life and how long will I use it for? And it might give you pause and make you realise, maybe not this one, maybe I'll buy a different one instead, or maybe I don't need to buy anything at all.
But this is it, because like I have a vacuum at home and it's not working very well, and it's kind of like, oh, we just buy a new one. It's like, could we bring it somewhere to see if it's repairable? And if not, maybe we can give it to them for parts and they can give it to someone else for parts.
And they'll probably know what parts could be salvageable as well. If they're knowledgeable enough to be able to repair it, they'll probably know things like that as well. And like here in Dublin, we're lucky enough that there's like a hacker space called Togue, and they often run repair cafes. So if you have a broken item, you can bring it to their many.
So sweet.
There are many handy hackers in that space who'll try and figure out how to fix things for you. And that's the thing, we need more things like that. I've heard of people launching things like product libraries. So, like the average household probably doesn't need to own a drill. Like unless you're really handy and you do a lot of DIY, you probably don't need one. But maybe like every once in a while, you'll need one. And like if it was me, I would borrow from someone who has one. But if there was something like a product library that you could borrow those kind of one-off items from when you need them, that's another way to kind of introduce a commercially viable model that's also sustainable. And you mentioned Hoovers there, or vacuum cleaners I should say. And what's interesting there is I remember reading, this was a number of years ago, about how the way things go now in terms of like valuation in tech and in the economy more generally, but obviously I would have been focusing on tech, the likes of a Dyson company, which was very successful in what it did, like whatever way you feel about Dyson as a company or as a brand or whatever, they were very good at making very useful products for people that worked well and lasted quite a while. And they weren't really seen as a good investment as a company, because when you buy a Dyson as a consumer, you are set up and you probably won't replace it for many, many years.
Okay, so yeah.
So and that was the moment when I realised, oh, this is broken as a model, because if we don't see sustainability as the right way for a business to go, well then everything is going to start falling apart really quickly. And that's how you get to kind of where we are now, where like you have planned obsolescence and you have no one owns anything anymore, like everything is rented at a subscription fee price and that kind of thing. So that's the direction of travel you get when sustainable business models aren't seen as valuable and effective. And it's why Dyson then had to pivot into hair products and things like that, because they can't sell enough Hoovers to please investors. They had to create something else with air. And I will say, to their credit, they still make long-lasting products. I do have one of their hair dryers. It's life-changing. Honestly, I'm not paid to support Dysons, believe me, but like I will back a good product when I find it. And they also have really good repairability. They also have like an eBay shop where they resell products themselves. So if people return a product to them, they will repair it and they will resell it, and it's certified by Dyson themselves. Wow. So I love brands that take that kind of approach.
Do you think maybe that's the future now for brands and technology, is that whole eBay selling on repairing?
I really hope so. Like with the digital product passports coming in, that can help to shape consumer sentiment around this. And already it's kind of happening. Now we do have kind of two sides to this story, where on one hand you have influencers promoting shine drops and big Temu spending and stuff like that. And even just the imprint of the travel involved with those products is crazy. Like shipping small items from China just because it's a few euro cheaper is a dramatic increase in carbon footprint of what should be small purposes and have a much smaller impact. But you also have like these de-influencers. You see these other popular personalities online who are like really promoting the idea of buying secondhand and fixing things up. And there's also a really nice community vibe to that. Like people share skills in that kind of way as well. Like I follow a lot of people who repair their own clothes online, and I'm not very good at stitching, but I really do enjoy watching their videos of doing it, and people who upcycle furniture and things like that. And it's actually, it feels like a really positive and nice community. And I think that element to it helps. Like the fact that it doesn't feel like you're being preached at and criticised, because that's what I was saying earlier. I don't want to sound like I'm saying to people, you can't be using these technologies, they're dangerous. Because what I really want to see is that from the top down, things change. But I think from the bottom up, consumer sentiment can change as well. And I do think that that's going in a positive direction.
So that's it for this week's episode of Re-Energize. A huge thanks to our guests. Don't forget to subscribe and spread the word about the show. Send this to your biggest tech nerd friends. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next episode.
This podcast was produced and recorded by the Podcast Studios for ESB. Production and editing by Connor Reid. Project management by Katie Flannery. Original music by Dan Wilcox. Video editing by Judy Hassett. Graphics and design by Matt Mahon.